Good evening. And what a week it's been. It is difficult to keep up with the Trump administration and what is going on, not only domestically, but worldwide. Of course, many of us are interested in what is happening between Ukraine and Russia. In this week, President Trump and his people did talk to both sides, and they feel they're getting close to some kind of an agreement. Well, here with me tonight is David Pine. He is co-director of the EMP task force. Welcome back to the show, David.
Thanks, Maria. It's great to be on.
It's great to have you. You're quite an expert in a lot of these areas. I want to get into what you're doing on your task force, but first, let's start with Ukraine and Russia. So, right before President Trump was talking to them about a ceasefire, Ukraine did a very large strike on an airfield that ended up, of course, there was weapons there. So, it was a very, very large explosion. People got hurt, people got injured. And then in return, allegedly, after agreeing to ceasefire, Putin then went on to strike a railway. What is your assessment on this ceasefire? Is it something that we can bank on?
Well, I think it's, I think the call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin was very positive. But there wasn't a whole lot agreed to. What we really need are agreement on the peace terms. And I think President Trump is maybe going out of order from what I would be doing. I think his efforts are really noble. But in terms of what was actually agreed to, it was just a partial, so-called partial ceasefire. Was really just an agreement not to strike each other's energy infrastructure. So it was actually even more limited than what the Trump administration stated after the call. It was not infrastructure wide. It was only energy infrastructure. So anything, power grid, oil refineries, that type of thing. Of course, there have been and will continue to be strikes on other targets. But I haven't been able to independently confirm whether that portion of the ceasefire has been violated, because a lot of people, fail to realize that Ukrainian President Zelensky only agreed to that partial ceasefire just yesterday morning. So any strikes that occurred before that were prior to a mutually agreed upon partial ceasefire.
Oh, interesting. I wasn't aware of that. And do you believe that President Putin, while on the phone with President Trump, had agreed to a partial ceasefire at that point, saying, I won't hit any energy type structures?
No, it was clearly stated in the readouts of the calls or the reports, media reports, that this was a U.S.-Russia partial ceasefire agreement that would only come into effect. It was conditional upon Ukrainian acceptance. So Zelensky, his first reaction was, I need more details. I'm going to study the proposal. Basically, I'll let you know if we agree to it. And then yesterday morning, he said, yes, this is something Ukraine can agree to. And there have been, of course, further strikes since then. But I haven't seen confirmation that both sides have violated the actual ceasefire terms, which were again, very, very, very limited, just limited to only energy infrastructure only. So striking each other's infrastructure that's non-energy related would, in my opinion, would not constitute a violation of this very limited partial ceasefire.
Well, the reports are that Russia did bomb the railway energy infrastructure. And who knows whether this is propaganda or not. This is what I find hard, David, is to find truth and authenticity. Everybody's got an angle, a side, and I just want to know facts. So let's just say these things happened in the last week or so, but as of yesterday, we have this agreed upon partial ceasefire. What's the next steps?
Well, the next steps, in my opinion, all Trump needs to do, if he wants a 30-day ceasefire, Russia's been very clear on what would get them to that point, and that is that the U.S. and Russia agree on, essentially Russia's main terms to end the war in terms of a permanent peace agreement. And that, of course, is Ukraine will become permanently neutral outside of NATO, as it was before the February 2014 Maidan coup that was CIA funded and backed. It would also agree to basically freeze the lines, either freeze the lines as they are, the line of control as it exists at the time of the ceasefire or peace agreement, or Russia's demand that all of the territory within the four annexed regions of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, and Donetsk are transferred to Russian control, and that's something I think Russia or Trump should push back on. I think he should only agree to the line of control, whatever territory Russia has managed to take over at the time of the ceasefire, and then of course. Very importantly, Ukrainian partial demilitarization, both in terms of the size and the capabilities, in terms of long-range strike systems within the Ukrainian armed forces, and finally, no NATO peacekeepers at all deployed to Ukraine post-war. So, if Trump were willing to concede those terms, Russia would agree to an immediate ceasefire. I think it would end up being a permanent ceasefire. And then we could get a peace deal signed between the U.S. and Russia, and we could bring that to Ukraine for their signature. If Ukraine had any minor amendments or revisions at that point, I think the U.S. could carry that to Russia and push for that. But ultimately, this war is only going to end with an agreement between the United States and the Russian Federation, because Europe, both EU leaders and Vladimir Zelensky, have made very clear they don't want peace. They want to fight the war indefinitely.
Yeah, that is very strange that they just want to keep fighting. And I don't understand the end point unless Putin really believes he can get most of Ukraine. And, I do have empathy for Ukraine being invaded. Nobody should invade your land. I'm very upset about the misuse of American taxpayer dollars, though. But listen to what the president of Lithuania had to say.
Like 87 years ago, before the Second World War, we are standing in front of strategic choice to let the aggressor to escalate the violence and fear, or to stop it, to paralyze its ability to intimidate us, and to build a credible wall of defense separating Europe and Russian Federation. In the short run, we have to support Ukraine, and this is absolutely obvious that Ukraine needs our military assistance, Ukraine needs ammunition, long-range missiles, and we are ready to provide it. We should increase the pressure on Russia, imposing the 17th package of sanctions, including LNG imports, more banks. And Lithuania proposes to set the orientation date of possible membership of Ukraine in the European Union, 2030, January 1st.
Well, that is the president of Lithuania. And I know I was just in Italy for an extensive vacation, and the people of Italy were a little bit upset with Giorgia Meloni, their prime minister, for voting to have more weapons and more funding going to Ukraine. I think everybody's a little bit tired. But as President Trump said, this is their backyard. They should have done this from day one if they believed it. If they believe they're at risk, they should have been stepping up right away. And I think the whole world leans on the United States to be everybody's police person. And there's a new sheriff in town. If it benefits us, I believe we'll get involved. But otherwise, we can't keep putting out money and taxpayer money here and there. The world's an unstable place sometimes, and we have our own issues here, and we got to build up our military. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, the whole Russian threat is really a threat of NATO's own making. It's this whole policy of NATO imperialist expansion all the way to Russia's entire western frontier that's caused them to react militarily. Before 2008, obviously, the Bucharest Declaration of April 2008, in which NATO leaders clearly stated that both Ukraine and Georgia, former Soviet republics, would be following the Baltic republics and joining NATO. That was a red line, especially with Ukraine. Prior to that, Putin had been in power for several years, never made a move in 7.5 years, actually eight and a half years against any other country, and that was there was the clash with Georgia when they attacked Russian-backed separatist regions. And then, of course, Ukraine in 2014, when they occupied Crimea, and essentially a bloodless occupation, followed by the referendum to join Russia. But in the 2022, really all Biden needed to do was to issue a written guarantee to Russia that Ukraine would never join NATO. That's Putin made very clear in his phone call on December 7th, 2021, reported by the New York Times. He said, we won't invade. We guarantee we won't invade Ukraine if you issue this written guarantee that Ukraine would never join NATO. And the sad part is, Biden behind the scenes told Zelensky, "You're never joining NATO." So, this whole war has been fought over a farce. Russia invaded because of its legitimate security interests were being threatened with this, potential existential threat of U.S. nuclear-capable missiles being stationed in Ukraine, just 300 miles from Moscow. I think the U.S. would have reacted very similarly if we were to conduct a coup and overthrow, Prime Minister Trudeau, replace him with, rather if Russia were to do that and replace him with a Russian puppet prime minister, and then station nuclear-capable missiles and Russian troops 350 miles from D.C. and in Toronto. I think we would have responded much more forcefully than Russia has responded to Ukraine. I'm not justifying Russian aggression. Of course, we all have to condemn Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. But I'm saying it's just as Trump has stated, very understandable that they reacted the way they did. Trump is a foreign policy realist. He alone has both the courage and the ability to save Ukraine, to prevent Russia from annexing any more Ukrainian territory. And the crazy thing is, all these people that claim to care about Ukraine are the ones pushing against that. They're the ones who are wanting to kill off the Ukrainians at a faster rate, get them, use them as cannon fodder and throw them into the Russian meat grinder, where they're losing troops at a rate 4 times faster than the Russians are. And the end game of that, the end result of that will be a total Ukrainian military collapse, likely later this year, followed by the Russian, occupation, perhaps annexation of half of Ukraine.
Yeah. I agree with your assessment totally. The Democrats are fighting against President Trump, trying to have peace talks. We're talking peace. We're talking human lives, but yet they're resistant. Well, that's probably because it's President Trump. Now, there's a particular nuclear weapon that President Putin has, and a lot of people are talking about it. It's a rocket. I was just going to try to look up the name. I think it's called like True Love. Does that sound right, David? It is a fast rocket, very precision-like, and literally drops out of the sky to its target. Are we confirming that's a nuclear weapon?
Well, so Russia has 6 nuclear super weapons, in addition to many other nuclear systems much more advanced and capable than our own. I think you might be referring to the Oreshnik. The Oreshnik was a conventionally armed IRBM. It's a derivative of I think it's the SS-26 ICBM, and basically one stage less. It's a 2-stage missile versus a 3-stage. And it actually approaches ICBM range, and it has demonstrated the capability to have 6 conventional warheads coming down at hypersonic speeds, Mach 10, with deep Earth penetrators. That missile is, I think, the standard load is nuclear. So
Mm.
that was a first in warfare. We've never seen an IRBM, a nuclear capable IRBM, to be used in warfare. So that I'm really shocked that there wasn't more fear struck in the hearts of NATO leaders, and they keep wanting to provoke Russia to nuke them and destroy them with a cyber super EMP attack. After they saw this, because that same weapon could be used on NATO headquarters in Brussels and used to decimate NATO's military and political leadership.
Whew, boy, oh boy, it is scary. David, as always, your analysis is right on. Now, you are the Deputy Executive Director, EMP Task Force. I don't know a lot about electric magnetic pulse. All I know is I was told it's a sequelae after a nuclear blast. And if you're up in an airplane anywhere, all your electronics, everything gets scrambled, and it's like dangerous. Tell me what's going on. What would happen?
Yeah, so this is a very deadly existential threat the U.S. faces from 4 different countries. We have confirmation of, from a CIA report, that North Korea has 2 super EMP satellites that orbit over the U.S. in a polar orbit, meaning they orbit, instead of kind of horizontally in an east-west trajectory, it's a north-south polar orbit, where they're coming from the south, a direction that the U.S. has very little early warning systems, so it'd be very difficult for us to see them in the approach vector. Iran, we believe that they have super EMP nuclear weapons as well, satellites. Russia, of course, there was this huge scare about Russian super EMP satellites that could take out the satellites. But really, what wasn't reported is that weapon would be far more deadly against the people of the United States, and not, wouldn't be limited to the satellites. So that would be a devastating weapon as well. And then China most likely has, we know they have hypersonic glide vehicles that can, go into orbit, park. They have actually an increasing number of satellites that we don't know what they're for. And they're most likely, super EMP or orbital nukes that could be used to, take out all U.S. critical infrastructure with little or no warning. And the effects of that would be devastating. According to the report of the Congressional EMP Commission in 2008 and subsequent reports, it could kill up to 90% of America's population within 1 year's time. So that means essentially, most of the population would starve in place. People would kill each other for the last scraps of food and potable water. There'd be roving gangs. There'd be a complete breakdown of law and order. The government would collapse. Communications would be down. Obviously, financial, economic collapse. Essentially, we become a failed state, a failed third world state, really defenseless to enemy occupation. So. That is that. We don't want to pick a fight with any of those 4 countries, is what I'm trying to say.
No. What exactly does it do, this magnetic pulse? Does it interrupt? Like, I'm thinking, if they're survivors, right, there's got to be oxygen, but maybe at a point of impact, there's lack of oxygen. Can you get into a little bit more detail?
Yeah, it's actually it's a very crazy, unusual weapon. So what you'd see if it was nighttime and it exploded over your head, high over space, it'd be about 285 miles altitude. So most people wouldn't even see it. They wouldn't even be aware anything had happened. What they would find is the power had gone out and would not get turned on again. The cars wouldn't work. They wouldn't turn on. So planes would be shot out of the sky. As you kind of inferred, there'd be 1 million deaths just in the first minutes to hour. As all the planes were crashed in the air, and obviously rail accidents and car accidents, traffic accidents. So that's estimated to be just 1 million alone. Yeah, it would have a really devastating impact. Now, we do have limited hardening capability in the military. Obviously, our nuclear command and control system has limited hardening for EMP. We're unsure if it's hardened to the super EMP level, but in theory, at least, our ICBMs, our nuclear triad would be hardened against EMP effects, as would our, nuclear command and control aircraft, including Air Force One.
Oh.
But there's actually a lot of controversy as to whether a super EMP attack could severely damage our NC3 system to make it difficult and potentially impossible for us to launch a nuclear retaliatory strike following a super EMP attack. And as U.S. intelligence is aware, super EMP attacks are really the first blow in any nuclear attack scenario involving either the Russian Federation or the People's Republic of China.
Well, if you didn't scare my audience, I'm scared. Any prevention, is this something like an Iron Dome could prevent?
Yeah, so there have been bills in Congress, starting with the Grid Act of 2010. That was passed unanimously by the House. $2 billion worth of funding to harden the U.S. electrical power grid against the EMP attack. Unfortunately, Lisa Murkowski killed the bill in the Senate Energy Committee, and since then we've had no successful legislation to pass either house. President Trump issued a EMP executive order that did everything, but actually fund the grid. Of course, the president, with the non-emergency powers, does not have the constitutional ability to appropriate funding. However, as he's demonstrated, upon taking office, he declared emergencies for both the border and trade, demonstrating that he can clearly is willing to exercise emergency powers on other issues. This is an emergency far exceeding either illegal immigration or trade, trade requirements. So I've been urging, and of course the EMP task force has been urging both President Biden and now President Trump to declare a presidential state of emergency, both with regards to the EMP threat as well as the nuclear missile threat, to appropriate funding to harden the U.S. electrical power grid, which we estimate would cost about $50 billion, and then as well as to build a the golden dome that President Trump has proposed to shield the U.S. from nuclear missile attack, because as a recent congressional hearing exposed just 2 years ago, General Hyten had stated that it's official U.S. policy not to defend the United States, homeland or citizens against Russian or Chinese nuclear missile attack.
What? That's the craziest.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Thing.
That's what mutual assured destruction is all about. It's about leaving it's considered destabilizing to defend your own population against enemy nuclear missile attacks. So we've pursued that stupid doctrine ever since, I think, the ABM Treaty of 1972.
Wow. Well, David, you're doing God's work, because what you come up with, prevention strategies, how to save as many people after an attack, all of that will keep our race, the humanity moving forward. So I appreciate everything you're doing, and you're so full of knowledge. We had a great time, scary, but great time learning from you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria, so much. You're a great patriot.
Thank you. Wow, that's a lot to digest, but I think David gave us something to work on, right? We've got to call our Congress people and our senators and the White House and say, we want protection against an EMP or any nuclear attack. $50 billion. I know it's crazy money, but we gave double that to Zelensky. Why can't we do something for ourselves, for our own country? Certainly, I would love to save everybody in the world, but here I am in America. This is where my family is, my friends are. We are the greatest nation on earth, which threatens people like Russia, threatens people like China, threatens Iranians and North Koreans. And again, I know everybody says it, oh, not the people, the leadership. Sometimes it's a mix of both, but I really do mean the leadership, the radical people, because certainly in Iran, it's not just their Ayatollah, it's their president who's a murderer, it's the Revolutionary Guard who are murderers. So we need to protect ourselves, because it really isn't a matter of if, it's when. We get attacked all the time. We just don't hear about it. All these naval ships that were being attacked by the Houthis from Yemen, we really didn't know about it until we did intervention. What news stories are really coming out about the 170 plus attacks? I'm going to take a short break so we can digest this. Be back momentarily.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed, because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
You all know I stand by the truth. And if I put my name on something, I truly believe in it. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to something I'm incredibly proud of. My own brand of organic specialty coffee, Rudy Coffee. Believe me when I say it's the best coffee you'll ever try. It's smooth, rich, chocolatey, and gentle on your stomach. It's so good, I even recommend drinking it black. It comes in 3 varieties, including what I promise is the best decaf you'll ever have. You can order now by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting rudy.coffee. By supporting Rudy Coffee, you're not just treating yourself to exceptional coffee, you're also supporting our cause, the cause of truth, justice, and American democracy. You'll also be supporting the Call to Action nonprofit, which is devoted to helping veterans and first responders, so you can make a difference and taste the difference by ordering today at rudy.coffee.
Are you looking for monthly income without the risk of stocks? Here's something you won't hear on CNBC. There's actually a unique way to collect royalties directly from America's most productive oil fields. No exploring, drilling, or operational headaches. You simply collect checks month after month. The best part? You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. The Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Lichtenfeld, breaks down what he believes is the #1 oil royalty play for 2025. Visit mariaoilboom.com now to learn more. That's right, mariaoilboom.com. Stop buying oil stocks and start collecting oil royalty checks instead. Welcome back. I'm thinking about President Trump in his initiative, his promise to the American people that he was going to secure our borders and work on the destructive gangs within our borders, and he's been true to his word. Of course, he's having a devil of the time with a radical judge who is telling President Trump what to do as far as national security, and even suggesting that the plane should have turned around. And he wanted details. He wanted to know who was on the plane, what time did it leave. Most people, and I am not a legal scholar, just think this defies common sense, and it's a huge overreach of this particular judge. We know we have issues in this country with activist DAs, where they're not really about the Constitution or justice. They're about this ideology, this Marxism thread of one rule. And if you're not like me, or you don't do what I say, I'm going to get you. Well, we all stood up on November 4th, didn't we? And we say we reject that. But it's a little bit harder to get rid of judges, but we got to start impeaching them. But I've been fascinated with this particular prison in El Salvador. Remember, our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, went to El Salvador and visited with President Bukele. And Bukele said, geez, if you have a hard time jailing the criminals, I got space, and I can do it probably at a fraction of the price of the US. And certainly they could. But it's a really neat story. And like I said, I actually knew about this prior to us sending the illegal aliens in the gang Tren de Agua over to the El Salvadorian prison. But in 2022, so here Bukele said to the people, we're not living quality of life here in El Salvador. The murder rate is the worst in the entire world. People are scared. This gang is ruthless, and they literally brag about the amount of murders they commit, kidnappings, rape. So by 2022, so he had this dream of this prison, and murders began to drop dramatically, and it went down to 154 homicide from like 6,000 or 7,000. It was like a staggering 97.7% decrease. But let's learn a little bit more about this prison. Let's look at cut 1.
States.
Bukele has made El Salvador a trademark of his authoritarian fight against crime. In heavily publicized videos, inmates in boxer shorts are forced to go into the yards and sit nearly on top of each other. Bukele's crown jewel of incarceration is a mega prison called Terrorism Confinement Center. It opened in 2023. More than 84,000 people have been arrested since 2022 amid a crackdown against gangs in El Salvador. At least 12,000 of them were sent to this mega prison outside El Salvador's capital. The center can hold 40,000 inmates in cells for up to 70 prisoners. In there, prisoners do not receive visits, and they are never allowed outside.
And this is some of the strategy in something that would not be accepted here in the United States. But the gang members are brought in. They immediately are, shave, no facial hair, no hair on top of their heads. They're all wearing the same thing. When they go out and about, they only can leave their cells 30 minutes a day. They have to walk with their heads down. They can't look anybody directly in the eye. And remember, the mafia ran some of their business from jails. Cartels run some of their business from jails. So Bukele was smart. He says no visitors. So that's one thing that the United States would never stand for. But they can't have visitors. They don't even go out to court because that's a risk as well. So they do their court hearings via video. And the other thing with no visitors, nobody could bring any weapons in. So it's very, very strict. And if you get out of hand, the solitary confinement is a black hole. And they actually fear that because it is so deprivation of everything, light, and you don't get as much food. You can't stretch. You're in this little hole. So it is very strict, lots of guards. Lots and lots of guards. That's part of the strategy too. They can't be overpowered. So they have a lot of armed guards. A lot of them have masks on because even though they have these strict guidelines of no visitors, no phone calls, word could get out, go after this guy's family. So they are protected in that way. It is called the Center for the Confinement of Terrorism, known as CECOT, C-E-C-O-T. Very, very large facility. It's by the way, when you get even near the prison, your cell phone is blocked. There's no signal. So you can't coordinate an escape or anything like that. I've watched many documentaries on this particular prison because it's been around now for a little bit, and the way murder rate was impacted was crazy. Now, not everybody in that prison is a murderer, but most are. And they talked on some of these shows and bragging about how many people they murdered, and their tattoos tell a story. There are rival gangs within that prison system. Now, in America, we'd separate them because we don't want trouble. They mix them because they start trouble, they're going in that hole. And so they did make this offer. President Bukele did make this offer to house, whether you're a United States citizen or not. They said we can house them here. I think it's harder to do United States citizen because we do have a constitution to abide by, and we do have certain Bill of Rights. But certainly an illegal alien who is a murderer, rapist, trafficker, drug pusher, yeah, let's put them over in El Salvador. Here's something a lot of people didn't realize what happened. There was 200 and some odd people on one of the planes, and they attempted to hijack the plane. Of all people, Matt Gaetz reported it. He is a host now on One America News. But luckily, the El Salvadorian prison guards, when they got on, they just keep their head down, so they don't have any power of strength. They're all crunched down to walk. I like the model. You have to be pretty sure someone's a really bad guy to put them in that kind of environment where you're really stripping away all their rights. But they have the right people in there. They're almost all gangs, tattooed from the heads down. I think there's been so much talk about the type of tattoos and what they mean and how many people they've killed, and they'll typically have women faces on their lower legs, that I think they'll probably change strategy now, because there's no secret into, some of the things that mean I've killed 20 people, 30 people, 40 people. But certainly President Bukele has made a big impact on the quality of life of El Salvadorians. And that's what we want now. That's why we voted for President Trump. We want to feel safe again. And it's going to take a while. I do warn people, yes, we've shut down a lot of the invasion at the border, but what do we have inside? Yeah, we're going after the worst of the worst right now. But sometimes the devil knows how to hide in sheep's clothing. And I worry about terrorist cells. Muslims, radical Muslims, have been allowed to infiltrate most of Europe, and we've seen devastating results. And here in America, we're almost afraid to call that out. Are there good and bad people of all types? Yes. There are some pretty darn bad Catholics, right? Look at what some of the priests did back in the 80s, and others who covered it up. And I feel like I don't want to be logged in with them. Israel lives side by side with peaceful Muslims. But there is an elk, and a big elk of them, from Syria, Yemen, who want their way. They go to Sweden, they go to England and say, I don't want your laws. We want our own laws, instead of assimilating into the new country that graciously accepted them. But I don't know what's for the Trump administration in this judicial fight. We have to make a stand. This whole era is about change. It's about accountability. It's about authenticity. And the courts are staring at us. We are hoping that Bobby Kennedy is going to take care of some of the corruption in the healthcare field and in the food industry. So we're banking on the Justice Department, Pam Bondi doing her thing. But when does the Supreme Court move in, and how does that work? Does the Supreme Court have any authority over district judges? Can they remove somebody? We know certain judges at certain levels can be impeached. Now, we had a president who was not only corrupt, but should have had the 25th Amendment against him, and Republicans didn't even stand up to impeach him. I know they were all talking, we don't have the votes. I don't care. There's a right and a wrong. You got to try. It's for the American people. I guess I'm a purist at heart. But let's keep an eye on this prison CCOT and what's going on over there in El Salvador. Maybe there's a new way for prisons here in America, especially we know there's no cure for pedophilia, right? We know how much that hurts a child, and they're forever affected. Sometimes they even live in a cycle. Then they abuse other children this way. So they should never be let out of jail. So maybe we have specific jails for those lifers that are a little bit tougher. Murderers, rapists. I don't know. I think we're too easy on the people who do some heinous things to God's people. So our health segment today, I want to talk about norovirus. And you may have heard the word norovirus from cruise ships, because if one person gets norovirus on a cruise ship, most likely it's going to spread throughout. It is a highly contagious virus. So people might say, well, yeah, it's like food poisoning, right? It's a little different. So you can get salmonella from, undercooked things or from chicken. But what happens with norovirus, it's someone who's affected with the virus who touches food that gives it to you. That's how you could get affected. You could also get infected by touching the surface. It does live on a surface for about 2 weeks. We are showing you the actual virus right now. And in my trusty little whiteboard, that is the name of the actual virus. And it's called Calcida verde. That is Latin. And it's a family of viruses, and there are different groups with 48 types. And G11.4 is the most common. And I can tell you, I recently had norovirus, and it was classic. I came home from Italy recently, and I feel like it was within an hour of me walking in my house, unpacking my suitcases. I may have done a load of laundry, and all of a sudden my stomach, I couldn't even make it to the bathroom. Projectile vomiting everywhere. And then it doesn't stop, right? It goes on all night, comes out both ends, severe abdominal pain. Some people may or may not have a fever. I certainly had a fever. The beauty of it is, if you're healthy, it is self-limiting and you normally get better. You stop the vomiting within 24, 48 hours. You do feel weak for a little bit more. Now, prevention, washing your hands for everybody. Wash your hands. Wash surfaces, especially in highly traveled areas. Be careful, the escalators at airports, all of that, those could have viruses, even bacteria on it, fungus. So you have to be careful, wash your hands. This is not a respiratory issue. This is strictly, some people call it the stomach flu. Now remember, what do we call flu? Is influenza. And influenza is all respiratory. So it is a little bit misleading, but the layman's term would be stomach flu. There are two big virus families normally in the winter months, right? We're talking about from November to April. You see two: norovirus and rotavirus. Rotavirus typically affects children, where norovirus is all age groups. Within 12 to 24 hours of being exposed, you start showing symptoms. And when you're showing symptoms, you are highly contagious. I try to hide from my family. I clean things with bleach, which is recommended by the CDC, 5 to 25 tablespoons of bleach in a gallon of water. Also, hand sanitizer is not good enough to kill this. You have to wash with soap in water and do it a couple times and rinse that soap out, rinse your hands really good. And so you're still able to shed the virus. So what happens is when you've heard this term even during COVID about shedding the viral load. And so when you're vomiting and diarrhea, the reason your toilet has a lid on it doesn't help with vomiting, because that'll microscopically will splash up, get on your walls, get on other areas, and that's how you can affect people. But when you're going to the bathroom, you are supposed to shut your toilet seat after, then flush the toilet. Aha! This stops it from splash back up. Again, you may not even see it. It's microscopic. But trying to prevent other people from getting it. Now, here's the kicker. Up to 48 hours later, you still might be contagious, even though you don't have a fever any longer, nor are you vomiting and diarrhea. The biggest thing we worry about is dehydration. So as soon as you can, and here's a trick, you start to drink, but not a lot. So people might think, Dr. Maria, what are you saying? Don't drink a lot of water. Now listen to what I'm saying. If you've been vomiting in your stomach, you're still vomiting, and you take a lot of water and you vomit again, you're actually losing more fluid than what was in your water bottle. Every time you vomit, you're bringing up fluid from within your body as well. So by continuing to drink while you're vomiting, you're going to further dehydrate yourself. Wait till your stomach is settled and take a teaspoon of water. And this is painful. I had to do it, and I was dreaming of water, but I know how to do this. And that stays down, 10 minutes later, another bit, and you have to build up to it. But there is no cure for norovirus, just always trying to stay as healthy as possible. Vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D, hand washing is so, so important. And it is the leading cause of foodborne illness in the United States, because when it goes through you, it is fast, highly contagious, and best of luck. I then had a bacterial kidney infection right after that. So I've had my run of things happening to me. So as you may know, when my show first started, I always tried to find these beautiful stories. I love uplifting stories. I don't mind giving you my opinion about politics, policies, having experts come on. That's stuff we all need to know. We've had the last 4 years, we've had the most propaganda. We now have learned this has been going on since communism has invaded the White House in the 30s, and now it's this Marxism. So it's important we share the right information with people and not give you any kind of spin or lies. But it is always, we are good people throughout the world. There are very, very good people. I've been blessed my entire life to meet people who would give of themselves, of their time, of their money just to help somebody out. I hope I am an example of that. I'm always trying to help other people. Again, it may not be money. It may be I see an elderly person struggling with putting their groceries up on the thing there to get their groceries paid for. I may help with that, or I see them struggling getting their groceries in a car. And that's the right thing to do. I was actually very surprised when I was in Europe and I would see young people sitting in seats and elderly people coming in and having to stand. That was unthought of. I was not raised that way. I am not that way. My children are not that way. They would give up their seat for anybody who was older than them or maybe disabled, but anyways, that's a whole other story. But the whole thing, my whole long spiel right now is to celebrate good people. So this story is out of Arizona. So this woman happened to be out and she was in her car and she happened to notice an elderly woman kind of walking funny. Something just didn't seem right. So she came around in her car, rolled down the window and said, "Can I help you? What's the matter?" And the elderly woman said, "I'm lost." Well, she got her in the car and got her home okay, but they both shared the same name as well. But let's watch this clip about Linda Gomez.
A Gilbert family is happy to have their 83-year-old mother back in their home after she was found wandering along Ray Road, this busy stretch of street down in Gilbert. She was found in this median, and the woman who helped her, well, they've got something in common.
Sometimes pushing past the 45 limit, vehicles fly down Ray Road.
There's traffic going back and forth.
Linda Gomez got off work early Tuesday when her attention caught this median.
She was like tumbling and she grabbed onto a tree.
An older woman in need of help.
Something came in my heart where I felt like, what if this was my mom? I would want somebody to help.
Linda put her hazards on.
"Are you okay?" And she's like, "I'm lost." So I ran across the street. And I grabbed her and I go, "Come on."
Back to the car and buckled in, Linda called 911. After eating grapes and drinking water, they realized they were meant to find one another.
"Your name is Linda?" And I go, "My name is Linda." And so I go, "Can we take a selfie together?"
Linda had found Linda. Police got Linda Smith home safe, but she gets out of her home from time to time.
It's a struggle. I have 3 young kids. My wife and I both work full time. The care is super expensive, so it's out of reach for us to do. My mom has lived with us now 3 years.
Her son Kyle shares the reality of caring for a loved one with dementia.
My mom that I knew, she was a fantastic mom. She was an excellent grandmother. That person is gone, and the disease has taken over.
Kyle explaining to me that when his mom goes on walks, she sometimes ends up lost.
We've put air tags on her. We've put bracelets on her. She's lost her phone. She takes everything off. And we do everything we can, but at times it's going to happen.
Gilbert Police Department offering a free program for residents called Bring Me Home, designed for those who may need extra help communicating or may have cognitive or developmental disabilities, like Linda Smith. As for Kyle, he's grateful for kind strangers in his community, like-minded and like-named to his mother.
Pray for good people like Linda that come to find her when she does come out. I mean, we've been very fortunate that people like that are around.
In Gilbert, Christine Stanwood, ABC 15.
There's 2 aspects to this story. Obviously, it's Linda Gomez going out of her way. She may have been in a rush, whatever. She went out of her way to help another human being in distress. And then there's the angle of the son. You can hear his torment that he's trying to do the best he can, but he works. The care to get for his mom is expensive. And unfortunately, there is no cure for dementia, and it just gets worse and worse. So I don't know. I would have love to be involved in the Department of HHS because, as we know, there's plenty of money in the system. I did lectures on this throughout the United States of America, and I don't know if people really believed what I had to say, that there was so much money in our system. It's just being used in all the wrong places. But wouldn't that be great if we had respites for families, or places where elderly could go in the afternoon, say, if they have dementia, where they're supervised and the family can go to work or have a break. Yeah. But great people, neighbors helping neighbors, that's where it's always at. We saw that in North Carolina as well, right? With that last hurricane, it was the neighbors helping neighbors. So let's never forget that. Let's never forget us as human beings, what makes us different than animals. It's not just our intellect and our ability for reasoning. It's our ability to love and care for one another, and darn it, do the right thing. Well, it's been an eclectic Friday night show. I'm telling you, David Pine, he is brilliant, and I can't wait to see what he accomplishes with his EMP task force. And stay safe, stay healthy, and wash your hands with soap and water. Good night. We'll see you on Monday.